So you think if you're starting from greenfield, you do mobile first, then of course it makes sense to keep the same code base and do responsive
for a
as much as
website,
possible.
responsive, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then deal with performance and other issues as you
All right.
come into.
So
Which you probably should make your normal website, desktop website, just as performant, so it can actually have a nice impact back.
so the reason why we have lots of sites that are split on code base is because it's hard.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. It's gotten easier. I mean, if you start with Twitter Bootstrap or something
Yeah.
like that, you get a leg up, and you might need to tweak it or whatever, like we've done. But
So we have people that got lazy and do 2 code bases. We have people that did stuff, a lot of work to get it to be 1 code base, and then we have everybody using Twitter Bootstrap and kind of not understanding.
yeah,
That's what my experience is.
Yes.
yeah, it's exactly. I'm responsive. I got Twitter Bootstrap.
Yeah, exactly. Can't you tell?
Yeah, I can tell by the buttons, the color of the buttons.
So, let me get my notes out, sorry. Okay, well, I've got a question that keeps on kind of coming up. You guys talking about screen sizes, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They're also getting smaller. I mean, this has a web browser in it, and it's really small. And I use it, but it's painful. And I also know that using media queries is not going to work at some level, right? You just can't do it that way. So let's get into this server-side, responsive with server-side support. First off, let's go ahead and describe a little bit. So I don't know if everybody knows what's happening. So Cynthia, will you go ahead and describe Raptor.js and how it works in that aspect?
I mean, eBay's
eBay's delivery mechanism for...
So in eBay, this is what we do. Basically, when a product comes into play, we make a call on the product, whether this is just a product that is a browse mode, like users just come and see some sites there and just get some information, then we make it responsive. But a lot of eBay pages have some interaction too. So this is where we do, like for our server side, what we do pretty much is we detect whether what device it is. And the breakpoints that we keep for us are like 3 main breakpoints. One is the desktop mode, one is the tablet mode, and one is the mobile mode. So we choose different templates based on these 3 modes. Server side, but our backend is still the same. The database is still the same. The model is still the same. Everything is still the same. So if I'm talking more on an engineering side in an MVC world, the request comes to our controller. The controller is still the same. The controller makes all the calls to the backend, gets all the data information, and that's where it makes the switch. Oh, it checks, okay, this request came from a mobile device or a tablet device. Okay, choose this particular template. And then you give it to the browser. And that is one way of doing, but there are some pages where we don't do a different template altogether. We use the same template, but we make it a little smart. We know that this is a tablet, and this particular page needs a swipe variation. So we send a swipe Java. We have an inbuilt swipe JavaScript that we send to the page. And we know this is going to be in a mobile device, so we don't send that add module template. Because for that page, add is not very critical for us, advertisement module, so we don't send that module. And for example, our global our header module, right? It is optimized for tablet, mobile, and desktop. So that's again, we call that particular template, but all the other templates of the main body are still the same, the main desktop template, but the header template alone will be a tablet template, and we give that template.
Okay, and you're doing this all by user agent?
Yes, yes, that is a service that our mobile team maintains where we just make a call to it, it gives us everything, and it keeps updated and things. That's one central place that we maintain all this information.
Okay. Now, there's also one other thing that I kind of thought was interesting about the time delivery mechanism of doing all that template rendering and stitching it to the server side. You have some fallback mechanism if one of those resources goes slow, correct?
No, it's all in the same code base though, right? There is nothing like I'm going to an external service to get it.
Okay.
It's like we are writing templates, either Dust or Raptor templates or things like that. It's all resides in the same code base. So it's one engineer who works on both, and the delivery is still the same. So the code rolls out on a day. It means the code rolls out for tablet, desktop, and mobile on the same day.
In your development group, do you have someone who's expert in swipe and interaction of that nature and is working on that code base and make sure that that module works outside? I mean, are you kind of separating development space?
No, we were having like that, but it's slowly merging now. So we don't want to do that because that has a lot of complexity later. Yeah. So it's one engineer, because it's all ultimately HTML, JavaScript, and CSS at the end of the day. The browser understands only these 3 languages. So we make sure that our engineer gets trained and ramped up to it. In fact, eBay took this initiative like 6 months back, and nowadays there is no engineer that can say, I just work for tablet or a desktop.
Okay. Are you doing stuff like, are you trying to take care of and polyfill on the server side or decide on stuff that you're going to deliver based on the user agents, your knowledge of the user agents' failings or successes in JavaScript and CSS? Or are you trying to make your libraries more generic in that nature? Meaning, are you taking a look at 2 different tablets and knowing that they interface differently?
No. So again, we
really
are doing
just 3 different delivery
mechanisms, but again, we are responsive in the tablet world. So what I mean is a tablet again has landscape and portrait, and tablet has Android, iPhone, like iOS and all these
Same
things.
template, everything.
So we are responsive inside the tablet world. So we are adaptive in some cases in choosing between mobile, desktop, and tablet, but we are responsive inside its own world, because desktop again varies from quite a range of pixels. Tablet varies in quite a range of pixels. Again, mobile is different. So we are again responsive inside that particular interval.
And of course, you're able to say goodbye to ads in the mobile environment because you're hoping that the mobile user is actually doing some purchasing.
Yes.
Okay, what about Yahoo, where there's nothing to buy? You want to describe how you guys are doing this?
Well, regarding ads,
No, I'm sorry. I was just kind of passing the buck on that. No, describe your mechanism for what you're working on now, which is actually, by the way, Yahoo's using Node on yahoo.com homepage. I didn't know that. Anybody not know that? I didn't know that was happening. Yeah, okay, kind of cool. I didn't expect it. That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us what you're doing with this new stack you've built up.
yeah, actually we're slowly transitioning to like a whole new world where everything is going to be Node.js. Of course, there are some things, especially on the back end, that we might want to keep using Java or
your 17 other languages that Yahoo's
yes,
built over the years.
exactly.
Yeah, it's been around.
But we've been developing a new framework. Basically, this is actually, I would say, the second attempt of Yahoo doing that. Before that, I don't know if you guys heard, we had Mojito, but we found out that like Mojito was like almost like a one-size-fits-all thing, and it didn't work quite well. So we're taking a step back, and actually the Mojito team is now working with building like the foundational pieces so that you can build your own framework if you want, or you could even use other frameworks available today like Ember, Angular, whatever. So what we're doing actually is going a little bit, developing a different type of framework, which is very simple on the server side. Will be more like Node.js and Express, and that's it. And then you have all the template engine and things that you can use. But it's basically we're investing a lot on the server side and also client side rendering. And on top of that, we also have a library that hopefully will be able to make it open source soon. Which is basically based a little bit on Bootstrap and Pure and all the other frameworks, mainly targeting CSS and JavaScript. However, CSS, I would say, is very, 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 very different from everything you might have seen so far, which will be very optimized for large-scale websites. I'll be in the HTML5 Dev conference to talk about that. And yeah.
Okay, so can we talk about your pipe for just a second? When you say you're doing a lot of templating on the client side, you're doing a lot of client-side templating?
Yes.
Templating, so stitching. So you're talking about a bunch of pipelines with Node and Express rendering page fragments or modules or components, whatever you want to call them, and then stitching them together on the client side.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we're at a couple weeks away from releasing our open source Node framework and other stuff that we got too. It's just based on Express. It's real lightweight.
Okay.
We're not trying to. It's really for us to accelerate. So it's called Kraken. Release the Kraken. Because releasing Node and within PayPal was releasing a monster, because it's actually changed the way all of our teams are starting to work together. No longer thinking of just UI engineer, but really app developer. So it's Nicholas just wrote about the same thing. Nicholas Akis. But so our framework basically is based on Express. We use Dust.js, but the framework itself doesn't care what the template language is. We do both server-side and client-side rendering of those templates, since it's JavaScript templating. We were able to actually take that same JavaScript templating framework, Dust, and because it's JavaScript, we could insert Rhino into our Java legacy framework and run all that on there. So for a while, we were doing lots of lean UX. We've been doing lean UX stuff, lean teams, and taking the Dust JavaScript templating, do it in Node with all the prototyping, so we could real rapidly go to user testing each week and those sort of things like that, and then take the same templates and drop them over.
Into your Rhino stack.
Into our Rhino Java stack. We also
Rhino's JavaScript in Java.
Yeah, and we also took the C++ stack and inserted V8 into it, because we got a lot of stuff in V8.
Right.
So as we touch those pages, we can just rewrite those in Dust.
Okay. So this is mostly about your legacy code bases reused.
But then what we've done now is we've actually taken a Node and made it a full production stack at PayPal tied to all the systems without knowing you're actually working with PayPal. You're doing just Node. But that Dust templating allows us, both at server side and client side. We really believe in the JavaScript templating world. It could be handlebars, it could be anything, but we use Dust right now with LinkedIn.
Right.
And that's worked really well from us, and we've also developed an adaptive responsive framework. Masami and Rose and Steven are here. They've been working on that. We've adapted Twitter Bootstrap a little bit to make it work more optimally for us. So yeah.
Okay. What about Zazzle? I mean, I know you don't
Sure.
have the same scale problem, but
It's actually kind of fascinating being up here with folks from much larger companies. We're no longer
Come on,
really a
Dr. Z.
startup, but who's the professor? So we started building our framework in 2005. There were no frameworks in 2000. I mean, prototype was kind of out there. jQuery hadn't really hit yet. We also have a few advantages that the larger companies don't have, which is with a very small engineering team, we're all on the same stack. So
Which
it's
is?
been we're a C# stack on the back end. I'm hiring. Who
brought up
does C#?
Java. You're migrating?
.NET.
So, but it's been fun over the last 5 years or so to watch the industry solve problems that we haven't had. We're very thrilled with Node. I love the idea of running JavaScript on the server, but it doesn't actually address any of the problems that we have. So we have an
You
MVC.
just don't know it.
Maybe it's the right solution. Maybe we'll get there. But
Bees are hard.
I hear this Kraken thing is going to be big. So we have our own MVC framework on the server side. The other interesting thing was just because we are very targeted to what we're doing server side, we've been able to optimize for high performance web delivery much more than you get out of the box with most of the other frameworks. So we've been doing things for a while for figuring out all the JavaScript, all the CSS that you need at page delivery time, collapsing them, lumping them together, maintaining state in the client. So when we make AJAX requests, we know exactly what the client has and what it needs, and we can return what's missing if we want to defer load any of our JavaScript widgets, things like that. So it's a pretty rich framework. It's done in-house. If it looks closest to Ember, it actually shares an awful lot of the design that went into Ember, and it's working pretty well for us.
Well, if you don't know, I mean, Zazzle was really one of the earliest companies to really embrace AJAX. I still remember the buttons you guys were giving out, the AJAX God buttons. By the way, that's on the back of my chair.
Oh, good.
Still,
Thanks.
so I still have that great Zazzle button. So they were trying to solve a really interactive, experience with commerce 2005, which was pretty impressive. 2006, yeah.
That's early. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cynthil, I wanted to ask you, what are you using for templating, and why aren't you doing it client side as well?
We do both, and we use one is Dust. We use Dust a little bit, and I think a lot of information about PayPal and LinkedIn collaborating has helped us a lot. And the other is our own templating language called Raptor Templates, which is open sourced also. So we use that templating language also. It's a developer's, engineer's choice that we use. For client side, obviously we got to go for a templating solution. But for server side, we are not on Node. I mean, all our projects are not on Node. At least our core projects are still in a Java-based stack. And for Java, I think for performance and various other reasons, our templating is not equally performant like using a JSP in a Java environment. Obviously, the JVM compiles JSP in a much more better way than how another templating language would compile.
You're not using like XML accessibility translations, you're doing JSP?
We are using JSP, yes. I mean, for the performance reasons. But for some of the applications that we are building, like which doesn't need SEO and stuff like that, we are using client-side templates, and it's again split between Raptor and Dust.
What doesn't need SEO?
Like my eBay, anything behind a sign-in, like
Just sign-in
case,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
So a lot of pages are using templating.
Yeah. Eric. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Eric, we already decided, dude. Hey, Eric, what's your position? And we've already decided you're wrong.
Say what?
Yeah.
What's your position? We already decided you're wrong.
okay.
Yeah. So there you go.
Are you supporting? Give him a mic. One of you give him a mic. Someone introduce him. Sorry.
Hi everyone.
this
Nice
is-
to meet you. Sorry I'm a little bit late. It was quite hectic driving from the city down here. So
This is Eric Dorff. He's a lead senior UX UI designer at Autodesk and a mobile UX UI designer, a design lecturer at UCSC. What department are you at UCSC?
the technology department. There's a UC Santa Cruz has a department extension here in Santa
Okay,
Clara.
so UC Extension.
Yeah, so
Thank
it's
you.
for working professionals like you guys.
So I just spent 10 years at UCSC there. That
Okay.
was my last career. And
Cool.
there isn't UX design at UCSC. But UCS Extension, yes.
Yeah,
Thank you. Good.
yeah.
I was like, really? Wow.